There we go. Got it. This meeting is being live streamed. So
But
welcome to the welcome to the Urban Files. This is a show where every week we pick a new topic and discuss the latest news in cities and urban development. So join your hosts, Max and myself, Chuck, as we discuss these latest issues. So Max, I saw you pretty recently down in Miami, huh?
yeah,
So
a couple of weeks, right?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
not even so. Yeah, it was awesome to see you.
Yes,
I,
it was. And I mean, I think that was part of why we had planned it out. Anyways, I know we're closest friends, and I know that my wife has friends down there also. We were also lucky enough to meet up with some of her family down there too in Brickle, so that was pretty great. And we found a great rate on a hotel. We were staying on a Sunday to Tuesday, which we would not have normally been able to do, but because of that, even with taxes and fees, you're able to stay at a loft property in Brickle for around 124 per night with taxes and fees, which I think is a pretty good deal.
yeah, that sounds good. It was it seemed like a very last minute trip for you. So right, like
Yeah, yeah. So we knew we didn't really have enough time to commit to anything like big or major that was like out of state or anything. And it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, just because, I'm working in my dissertation. There's a lot of moving parts in terms of our lives right now. But, given the opportunity, we wanted to go somewhere.
yeah, yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad you came on down. Let's go over what all you saw and what your impressions were.
Yeah. And so, Miami is a new city. And I think we've talked about this on here before. It was formed in 1896 with Julia Tuttle, who's, to drop our little city trivia here, she was the only, or she was the first, at least, woman to found a major American city. And because of that, sometimes there's certain areas that are maybe lacking compared to a legacy city. You don't quite have the history, but you kind of, I think whenever you're visiting a place, you have to kind of learn to appreciate and embrace what it does have. And what Miami is one of the most dynamic and unique cities in the South. And there's a number of reasons, but I think the one that I'll start with is actually where we met on Sunday evening. We met at a place called Southpointe Park. Now, that is at the very southern end of Miami Beach, and it isn't a new park. It actually was originally founded in the 1980s, and it's kind of down there by the pier where you can watch cruise ships, and it's kind of just where the inlet where those leave the port of Miami, which of course Miami being the cruise ship capital of the world, we saw several as we were out that night. But it's just a really active and beautiful public space. In the last decade or so, I think around 2009, they shut the park for around 20 months or so to refurbish it, and now the landscaping is just incredible. It has like green gathering areas for exercise classes. It has kind of a natural, kind of like, or not natural at all, but like a hill feature to it. And I just thought that it was really fun to see the way that they had designed it. And it obviously people did too, because it was a madhouse, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seemed like, first of all, it seemed like a new park to me. It was my first time there, so I'm glad that you picked it as a spot first to hang out. Um, it seemed like a new park, but as you said, a lot of the details, a lot of these little elements that they incorporated into the park design really accentuated that location. I think, as you're saying, sort of this man-made hill really allows you to have this view over the park area as well as over the water. That's I don't know, it was beautiful. And
It was. And I mean, we got there at golden hour too, which certainly helped things. I mean, just watching the kind of the sun setting back towards downtown, actually, because, you can't really watch the sunset fully there over the Atlantic, but it really created a beautiful light. And, it was also, being November, it was pretty comfortable. But one of the other things I really liked was, a lot of public urban spaces in Florida don't do this, but there are a lot of shaded trees within the space, and see, you could just see where people are gravitating to those areas, and I think that really helps its usage.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with you. But in general, I think it was just tons of people. It was
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
it was a fun area to be if you like to sort of see the vibrancy of the community.
Yeah.
Lots of kids, our kids as well, enjoying the space. I think I commented to you as well when we were there that uh, for me, this really encapsulates why so many city advocates and urbanists really fight for keeping um, public space along the waterfront. I mean, this really was like sort of the epitome of a great waterfront public space.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I was reading something about this actually. It was kind of the difficulty, especially as like a younger person, of even just existing in public space. That so many places have a pent up desire for you to pay money to exist there, basically for whatever you want to do, and so it's a place for people to just be. And as you said, I mean, Miami Beach, of course, is known for nightlife and stuff, but this was families. This felt like just a really good place where you could see all levels and all ages of the community getting out and enjoying their lives, which so I mean, just a tremendous use of the space.
Yeah, for sure. And one visual that sticks in my mind is, as you said, the cruise ships heading out into the open water. And when we walked over from the park, we walked over to the beach area, the actual sand beach, and it was a little surreal for me. And my first experience seeing this, I guess, seeing a cruise ship head out into the water while we're
Yeah.
on. It looked like it was just right out there, and I could like swim out and
Oh
touch.
yeah. Yeah. It
uh,
looks a lot smaller when you're because I've taken a cruise out of Miami. It looks a lot smaller. They look like little dots on the land from that view. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, we're before we spend all of our time on just one evening in one location, what else did you see? What else?
Of course. So I really wanted to check out a couple of specific neighborhoods north of downtown. So Wynwood and the Design District. And of course, Wynwood is kind of, and I think Design District too, kind of more like industrial, kind of more blue collar areas for much of Miami's history, where, you kind of have the affluent Coral Gables and Coconut Grove neighborhoods to the south, but
Mhm.
kind of moving north, it's a little bit, it kind of been a tougher area and hardworking people and all of that stuff. But what you see there today is just shocking. And um, I guess first with Wynwood, you hear about neighborhoods that are arts districts, and you hear about neighborhoods that have murals. And Wynwood kind of takes all of that and puts it on steroids. It really, I think it claims to be the graffiti capital of the world, and I really don't see how anywhere could beat it in that regard. I mean, it's just literally every single building or business in town, every single square foot, the road, even you see murals on all sides and street art of all varieties. You kind of you have your high level, like I think Banksy may have done something there at some point, just because, of course, that they did, but like, you also just see, standard street graffiti, like, you don't see that as much in the American South, especially. I think it's just kind of more of a whitewash thing. It's more heavily maybe in, other parts of the world is more prominent. And so it is very unique in the neighborhood's aesthetic. And then, the design district may be even more shocking. You have an area that really I had never heard of, and I don't really think existed prior to the last decade or so, and just kind of like warehouses and factories. And at this point now, it's effectively like Miami's answer to Beverly Hills. I mean, you have Tom Ford, you have basically every high-end Jor, like basically, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but basically every high-end boutique or shopping store within a 10-minute walking radius. And every building is just decked out with modern design. I mean, you have, I think, Buckminster Fuller Studios created a fly's eye dome that actually makes up a parking garage there. So just a really cool area. I mean, design district especially, not really a place where I could afford anything, but a really cool area to walk around.
Yeah, it's cool to hear you say that because honestly, I am not as familiar. I think the last time I spent any time really in the design district was about two and a half years ago, maybe even more now, 3 years. Uh, and so it was really maybe just beginning to turn a corner at that time. But Miami, like many world cities, can change very quickly. One neighborhood. So I believe what you're saying. My impression was slightly different because you know, I'm late by a few years. But yeah, that's cool, and it's probably a place that I should check out at some point before while I'm still in the area.
Oh yeah, yeah. I highly recommend you getting over there. And really, I mean, I guess the one con potentially is, with I think Little Haiti is the next neighborhood just north of there, and it's kind of one of the traditional along the Little Havana ethnic neighborhoods of the city, and it kind of makes you wonder, hurt, because I mean, in looking at real estate values there, I think Wynwood, which is the first one I mentioned, has nearly doubled in the last decade, and that's maybe pushing a lot of the old residents out. And so that's kind of one of those negative effects. I mean, you see this awesome city and you see things getting better, and you see Miami's dramatic reduction in crime rates, which is definitely a positive in the past few decades, from going from being the murder capital of the US to really being nowhere near that. But it kind of makes you wonder about where those residents are or how this is influencing them.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's always sort of the flip side to the coin. Um, I sorry, I'm still thinking about my last time in the design district and just imagining what it is like now. Because
Oh yeah.
actually, when I was there, the reason why I was there was I was visiting the space that somebody I knew, a developer, was wanting to convert into sort of artist lofts, and he wanted to turn it into not just artist lofts, but a space for the community. And my friend with the Ritz Chamber Players, we were looking at perhaps performing in this space as well. And so I was there, and we were listening to this developer talk about his vision, and not just his space, but the whole sort of 2 blocks around. And at that time, it was still very much, it was still rough, and it was still very much just a vision. So I wonder if you have people like him hitting these little singles, how quickly a place can sort of transform.
Yeah, I truly think you would be completely shocked. That I will say, from a positive standpoint, they do have a Little Haiti neighborhood museum, along with, like, I think it's adjacent to the Institute of Contemporary Art up there, and so maybe that's kind of a homage. And I can't comment specifically. Let us know in the comments if you know what they're doing with that area, if they're doing some controlled rent or anything like that, because that would be anything like that. I mean, I think the people there have been there for a while and kind of make up the city, so it'd be good to see them be able to stay. I think the last place I wanted to touch on was Brickle, and that was where I stayed for this trip. And I mean, when you think about the best skylines in the US, I mean, New York obviously comes first, and probably still Chicago second. But at this point, Miami is getting closer to challenging for second than it is to any other major southern city. I mean, just in the last 5 years, I think 9 of the 14 tallest buildings in Miami have gone up. That, like, if you were there 5 years ago, you'd have missed that much of the height that's there now. I think it kind of speaks to the extreme level of wealth that is moving into Miami. There's the Aston Martin residences, which is their first delve into the kind of property business, and they designed a beautiful building right into water. Actually, the top floor, it is only $50 million, but it comes with a free Aston Martin Vulcan purchase, and I think there's only a few of those. So, I mean, that is, I guess, technically a deal, since that's a $2.3 million car. But if anyone has 50 million laying around or whatever, that might be a cool place to live.
Yeah.
But just seeing that, but also Brickle City Center. And I know you and I have been there a couple times and kind of are more familiar with it. But if you haven't been, it's really more not even like a Chicago Magnificent Mile type experience, but with the way that it interacts above the street level and kind of the modern design, it kind of calls to mind like an Asian city center mall that you might see in Hong Kong or Singapore. And actually, the developers of this and several other properties in the Brickle area are Swire Properties, which is a Hong Kong-based firm, which I think it at the time has owned like about 15 million square feet, if I have it right, in real estate in Hong Kong itself in their portfolio. And they are kind of delving into Miami, which is kind of in a way, it's almost like the Latin American Singapore, even though it's on U.S. soil.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see the elements of that in the design in BCC. So it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, it's I guess from an urban standpoint, it makes use of the space that it sits on pretty well as interaction with the street, integration into the Metro Mover there? I'm trying to remember. I think it's the Metro Mover that has a stop right on. Right.
Yes, the A Street station effectively has like a connection point to Brickle City Center directly.
So yeah, so I mean, in a lot of ways, there's positives. That said, it's not really a kind of place that I would normally hang out, right? I mean, it's cool to see, it's cool to visit, especially when you're a tourist visiting town. But I think for my demographic, it's not a place that I would frequent or hang out. I'm probably priced out a little bit
Yeah.
from the shopping standpoint, and then just in general, I mean, it's a cool place. I'm not trying to knock it, but I guess I'm probably more somebody who would hang out in Wynwood than BCC.
I can definitely see that perspective. I think, I mean, like I said, with Design District, I mean, you're really mostly window shopping at most of the shops at BCC. But I think what it has done is it's kind of reinvigorated the pedestrian focus in Miami. And even in some cases, if that is above ground with BCC, it's kind of helped, I think, some of the retail presence at Mary Brickle Village. It's kind of been like an addition, kind of like a rising tide sort of deal. And I think also maybe it's helped to bring to life some of the other green spaces around there, like the underline, of course, and some of the other spaces there. So, I guess I wouldn't go there expecting to spend money anyways, but I do love the vibe there.
Yeah. And just one more thing I feel to mention as you talk about Wynwood and Design District and the transformation there. There's that commuter rail. Would it be considered commuter rail? There's the transit line that Brightline is constructing that will have a stop somewhere along that path, maybe even two stops somewhere along that path. So that definitely adds sort of a fuel to the fire for all this development.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, there's a lot happening in Miami recently. I'd say if you haven't been there in the past 5 years, I mean, I hate to say you haven't been there, but you kind of maybe haven't. But also, there's more moving ahead. I mean, you got, even in the next 5 years, many of these developments may look unrecognizable from the way they do now. So I appreciated the trip, and I appreciated being able to see you there. And let us know in the comments if there's anywhere else you recommend that's new in Miami.
Yeah, definitely. And it was good to see you on that trip, and good to chat with you again today, as always.
Absolutely. Good night, everyone.